Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Cyclone InCYders live here on ISU TV, Mediacom Channel 18. I'm Matt Van Winkle. Joined with me today is Dean Burhow-Gall. He's going to be joining us throughout the rest of the semester, the assistant sports editor of the Iowa State Daily. To my far left, Cody Peterson, who is the beat reporter for ISU TV, covers some men's basketball for us, did some nice work at Oklahoma. We're going to talk to him about that later in the show. To my right, Alex Halstead, the beat reporter for the Iowa State Daily, who also covers some men's basketball. Alex, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on tonight.
We're going to start right off the bat with some men's basketball talk, as we usually do in the first segment. Big week for Iowa State, men and women. Going to get to the women in the second segment. But, guys, Iowa State 2-0 off the weekend. A big win against Baylor on Saturday. An unorthodox game for Iowa State. It wasn't a great shooting night, but they were able to pull out the 79-71 win against Baylor. And then just last night on Monday with a big, really a blowout win against Oklahoma. I know I really didn't expect it to be that big of a blowout, but guys, 2-0, Dean, 2-0 off the weekend, not too bad.
Yeah, you know, I was really impressed with the way that they played against Baylor. They shot really well from behind, or they shot really well from the free throw line rather, not the three-point line.
Surprising.
Hoiberg talked after the game that he was even impressed with the turnaround and the way that they had to game plan for Oklahoma. So he was really happy on the turnaround.
Cody, only 4 made three-pointers in that game, really unlike Iowa State, who's really averaging about 9, 10, 11 a game. A little bit surprising to you to see them not make so many threes?
Yeah, definitely. The three-pointers, they're bread and butter. And a lot of people don't think that they could, win without making a bunch of three-pointers, but they kind of proved them wrong by getting to the free throw line.
Yeah, and Alex, Baylor is a team that's so fast and so physical. I think that Iowa State, there were questions about if they were fast enough to compete with them. Obviously, size was a little bit of a concern coming into the season, but Iowa State was really able to match up with Baylor, and I think that was a good sign for them.
Yeah, Scott Drew said that they came to the game planning for the three-pointer, but he thinks ultimately the threes just didn't fall. And going 4 of 24 in the game on three-pointers when they entered the game, averaging 9, I think, like Hoiberg said after the game, it shows a lot. It shows how good a team is when you can win without your biggest weapon.
Yeah, and Dean, Will Clyburn goes and has 28 in that game. Really didn't do it the way he normally does. He kind of opened up the floor a little bit, opened up his game. Cody and I were talking a little bit about that yesterday during the OU game, that he really was able to show how versatile of a player he is. Really was able to drive to the hole. When shots weren't falling for him, he was able to make plays. And he said after the game, you got to do that. If shots aren't falling, for a team like Iowa State that makes so many shots, you got to find other ways to score.
Yeah, I think they really found out that you actually can live and die by the three, especially against Baylor when they go 4 of 24. What I was impressed with was the way that they attacked and they got to the hoop. They shoot 25 of 30 from the free throw line, especially Clyburn. I think he was 11 of 12 from the free throw line. Really, that was the way that he really hurt Baylor.
Yeah, Clyburn, that's a guy, I mean, he's having an unbelievable past few games. I think he's really stepped up, Cody, and I think that part of that, too, is that because other guys are kind of stepping up, too, as well. Other guys are taking a little bit of the pressure off him. I think having Boo Boo Paulo back kind of, helps a little bit. I mean, obviously he's that third guy off the bench probably, but he really helps with minute-wise. I mean, Chris Babb gets rest, Corey Lucius gets rest. I think having Boo Boo Paulo back in the lineup is really helping the Iowa State be more fresh out there and another scoring option as well, too.
Yeah, it looks like all the guys are kind of finding their roles right now. Yeah. Boo Boo comes in and just right off the bat has found his, and just let everyone else kind of relax, especially Clyburn, I think, out there.
And things really changed, though, Monday night, shooting-wise. I mean, Iowa State, we really saw the true Iowa State team, I think, last night. Really did it all. Clyburn had some big dunks, some alley-oop dunks, hitting, I don't know, let's see, how many threes did they make? 11 threes in that game. Compared to OU's only 3. So Iowa State was really able to find their shot against OU last night, though, Alex.
Yeah, they went 8 of 16 in the first half.
Yeah.
Thought maybe they're on pace for that 16 three-pointers in a game record. I think the only thing that they didn't do well was offense. They gave up a lot of offensive rebounds, but to give up 21 offensive rebounds and still win by 19, I think is pretty impressive.
I think to me, yeah, Dean.
Well, I was, Cody, I really liked what you said about them finding their roles.
Yeah.
No, that was my point.
Sure.
Chris Babb, he chases around Scott Pledger last night, slows him down, by a lot. He only goes 2 of 9 from the field. He averages 11 a game. He's really, aside from Athbaye, he's really their kind of their go-to scorer.
Yeah.
But I was pleased with the way that Corey Lucius looked. He had 8 assists.
Yeah.
I mean, how many of those passes did you guys see that? You thought yourself those were really good
really
passes.
threading the needle.
But
really good passes.
He found his role. Chris Babb found his. And again, like we were referencing to Boo Paolo, he comes off the bench. You know, he provides a couple minutes. He provides 18 minutes in relief for Lucius. He doesn't do anything special, but he doesn't turn it over. He plays defense, and he provides some assists.
Yeah, only 10 turnovers in the game. Oklahoma only had 9, but I think Iowa State I think that 10 number is a little bit misleading because they really did play a safe game of basketball, and I thought that really started with Corey Lucius really controlling the ball well. When he gets in foul trouble, that's when Iowa State gets in trouble. But I think, as you were mentioning, Boo Paolo coming in the game really has been a nice relief. He plays good defense along with Chris Babb. And we'll talk about another couple of guys, Anthony Booker and Percy Gibson last night, who both also had great games. I thought, Anthony Booker gets a standing ovation for it. He didn't play for the past, 2 or 3 games. 3 games, didn't see 1 minute of play. Gets in there, gets a couple, foul right off the bat. I thought that it was questionable. It was a nice block. I thought he had it, but comes in there, gets a couple blocks. He and Gibson tied for combined to have 6 blocks in that game. I think having those two are really going to be crucial down the stretch here when they're going to need guys. If George Niang gets in foul trouble, bringing in Anthony Booker off the bench and play you some good defense, which he did last night.
Niang and Edgerman found themselves in foul trouble the last couple games, and so to have the luxury of being able to bring Anthony Booker off the bench and provide those minutes is so important. And you saw it last night. I mean, he came in, he provided that physical presence underneath. 3 blocks. He had also 3 from Gibson. How interesting was that they had 6 blocks combined in the first half when the whole season they only had 11, through the whole season. So I was really impressed with his toughness underneath. I was really impressed with his presence underneath that they really didn't have, because what they've been doing is when Niang and Edgem get in foul trouble, they just go small. They just go small, and that's it was interesting to see them be able to have that different lineup, and you saw how effective it was against Oklahoma.
How effective has George Niang been, though? Since he got in the starting lineup, I think his play is just elevated that much more. I think being in the starting lineup just mentally just makes you step your game up more, just because you have to. I mean, you got to produce. And as a freshman, Cody, I think he's doing a great job.
George, and I think Will Clyburn mentioned this in the post game after the Baylor game, that he thinks that George is considered a captain, even as a freshman. And you can see that with his confidence when he plays. When he gets the ball, he's one of the best offensive players in the Big 12, bar none.
Absolutely. 20 straight games for Iowa State at home. How dangerous is this team? I mean, you get teams coming in here, Kansas State, they go on the road to play them, but when they came into Ames, Alex, I think Iowa State, that was one of their better games, and I think that the home court advantage is definitely a huge thing.
Yeah, I think it's huge. I mean, they've won, like you said, 20 consecutive games at home, and I know Hoiberg probably gets sick of talking about it. He gets asked about every single game, but I think there's definitely a big difference. I mean, when they go on the road, you saw it against TCU and Texas Tech on the road. Maybe they played down to the level of competition there, but the shooting also wasn't there. When they come home, it seems like for the most part, their shooting improves, and I think the fans definitely do carry them.
It seems like they're almost a different team, though. I think we talked about this a little bit last week. They're almost a different team on the road. Their scoring numbers are down. I think it's just maybe that they're just taken out of the game just a little bit. What do you think the reason is for that, though? I mean, they've had a few games. Obviously, the game down in Kansas was a nice performance. Obviously, didn't come out with the win, but I thought they played really good basketball. What do you think is going to take for them to go on the road and get some wins?
Well, I think one thing that Hoiberg mentioned was that when you go to a place like TCU or Texas Tech, you got to create your own energy.
Right.
Those places don't necessarily have the big time crowds, or it makes it more difficult to play or create your energy. I think, like you mentioned, Kansas, that's a great environment. I think that they played up to that level. To continue to play on the road, I think Kansas State's going to be a big test this weekend. That would be a great crowd, I'm sure, against a number 13 team in the nation. So I think we'll find out then, if they're making the improvement on the road.
I think this is just a team that feeds off energy regardless. I mean, like you mentioned, the Kansas game, and that was 16,000 people in a barn. I mean, that was the loudest environment I've ever been in. And they do it at home now, too. I mean, Hoiberg said it every game. Like you said, he gets asked every game. I mean, he's certainly getting a little bit tired of it, but, I mean, you can't deny the fact 20 in a row at home. They just play so well at home. They feed off their crowd. This is an emotional team. I mean, I would be willing to say that this is a little bit more emotional than last year's team. You think about Georges Niang, that guy feeds off the crowd. Tyrus does. Corey does. I mean, I think almost all these guys really feed off the crowd. And three-pointers, I honestly think that kind of comes along with that.
Something I didn't mean to mention, or I forgot to mention earlier, is that Iowa State now sits alone at 3rd place in the Big 12 Conference after the win against Oklahoma yesterday. They only hold that for the time being, obviously. There's some games that are being played tonight. But, Cody, how do you think Iowa State has a chance possibly? I know they got a big game on Saturday, which we'll talk about here in a second. But do you think they've got a chance to maybe squeak in for that 2nd seed in the Big 12?
I think that should be the goal for them right now.
I think so too.
You know, when they're on, you can see that the talent is there, that they can be a top 2-3 team in the Big 12. And if they want to, you know, first obviously lock up an NCAA tournament berth, but if they want to improve their seeding, you know, you want to be in the top 3 or 4 in the Big 12.
Yeah. There's so much parity, though, in the Big 12. I think there's so many teams. We talk about this week after week, and Coach Hoiberg brings it up every press conference, it seems like that. There's so much talent in this league. Is that every team, you know, 3 through 9, 3 through 8 really has a chance. I mean, this goes for the women, too, and we'll talk about that later. But I think that they really could finish 3rd. They could finish 6th. They could finish 7th, potentially.
I think there's a lot of talent. I don't think there's a lot of elite teams. I think the Big Ten really holds that prestige.
Sure.
But I wonder, though, you know, you talk about them, their goal should be 2nd seed. Yeah. If they can get to that 2nd seed, I think that they can make the tournament. I think, they will make the tournament with their 2nd seed.
Yeah.
3rd, 4th, 5th, now you're asking for a bubble team there. But I wonder, though, if with the talent of the Big 12, will they beat up on each other to the point where there's Kansas at the top, and there's so many teams that have 4 or 5 losses in the Big 12? You know, I wonder if that's going to hinder the Big 12 from getting maybe a 5th team in rather than just 3 or 4.
I think one of the keys for them maybe getting second in the league will be winning on the road. I mean, you look at the top 6 teams, the ones that are all bunched together, they're 21-4 at home so far this season in Big 12 play. So I think you've got to win on the road, and I think that starts Saturday, beating a quality team on the road also. I mean, you see people counting the wins, maybe the Texas Tech and TCU at home.
Yeah.
Hoiberg talks about you got to win your home games, but you also got to start winning on the road.
Yeah, let's move on to that game. Big game coming up on Saturday. They've got about a week off, though, guys. I think this is nice for them having that Monday game, not playing till Saturday. You know, they had the Saturday game against Baylor, so they get a few days to rest, kind of regroup after that short turnaround against Oklahoma. Big game, though. I think, you know, they won't. If they beat Kansas State, they won't get 2nd place, but they move that much farther up in the Big 12, and they need that big win on the road. This is a big chance for them. Running out of games against ranked teams. Obviously, Kansas State 13th in the country right now. They've got a great shot to make some damage in the Big 12 and even the NCAA right now. Yeah.
I think I think that it's resume building time.
Sure.
That's what I think it is.
Yeah.
You know, you've got Kansas State on the road, and I mean, perfectly, like you said, they're running out of chances to really build their resume. I mean, like you said, Alex, Hoiberg goes on that +1 system. You don't get a point if you win at home. You get a point if you win on the road. Right now, I think they're at +1.
Yeah, +1.
And so they're running out of those chances to prove to the NCAA committee that they belong in the tournament. I mean, you can go and beat TCU on the road, and you can take care of these bottom teams in the Big 12 at home. But the ones that matter are going on the road and beating Kansas State, on the road and beating Baylor, on the road and beating Oklahoma, and even a Kansas team. I'm curious, though. I wonder how the selection committee really views the loss at Kansas. I wonder how that'll factor in their equation. But like you said, they've got to get this road win. Yeah. I think that if they beat Kansas State, then I think they can still get in the tournament if they lose to Kansas. But I believe if they lose to Kansas State this weekend, I think they just about have to beat Kansas if they want to get in the tournament.
Alex, Iowa State went on the road and had 2 games in Las Vegas against ranked teams, went 0-2. But they came back just last month in January and got that win against Kansas State. It was a 73-67 win. Will Clyburn went for 24 points that game. What in that game did Iowa State do to find some success against Kansas State?
Well, I think one thing they did was they controlled Magruder. I mean, he had 13 points, and his numbers have actually come down a little bit from there. I think he was averaging closer to 20. Now he's averaging 14.5 points a game.
Yeah.
But I think they really controlled him. He had 13 and 7 that game.
Yeah. Dean, what do you think? What did Iowa State do well to, you know, obviously Chris Babb did a great job with Rodney Magruder. And from there, I mean, Kansas State has got a lot of guys that can score. They were really able to limit them.
I think that they really matched Kansas State's physical ability underneath the basket. You know, I think that you know, I was certainly watching warm-ups. Kansas State's got some really big guys. I mean, you got Jordan Enriquez, you got Spradling playing the 4. I mean, or Spradling playing the 2, Southwell playing the 4. Those are, I mean, that's a big team. And so I think what they did was they handled their physical ability, and like you said, Alex, they kept Magruder in check. Certainly, it's 13 and 7. You know, I mean, you would think that would be a good game, but Magruder, with the rate that he was playing coming into the game, Babb didn't allow him to score consecutive field goals, and 2 of those buckets were not even guarding Babb not guarding them.
When the Cyclones struggle on the road, it's when they don't get off to a good start, though. It seems to me like, you know, when you go to Kansas, Georgia Yang goes out, gets 8 straight points for you, keeps you in the game from the get-go. You know, you look at a game like Texas Tech, terrible start to that game. Oklahoma State, not really a great start to that game as well. So I mean, I think it all starts with you got to get off to a hot start on the road. If they get taken out of the game early, it's going to take a lot for them to get back in it, Cody.
And I think the long break from Monday to Saturday might help them out with that. Just gives a couple more days for them to game plan, and we've seen that Hoiberg, when he has some time, can really set up some effective game plans. What
makes it so tough to win at Kansas State, though? Obviously, they call it the Octagon of Doom. Is it going to be? Do you think it's going to be that environment?
Well, I certainly do. I mean, Kansas State, they'll probably be still a mid-teens ranking team after the win tonight against Texas Tech, which I believe when we started the show they're still ahead. I think that Iowa State just has to go in there, and going along with getting off to a hot start, what that is? That's controlling the crowd. And I think they have to be able to answer Kansas State, much like Kansas State did at Hilton. Iowa State would go on a run, Kansas State would answer. That's why it was a close game. Same thing when Iowa State went to Kansas, went to the Allen Fieldhouse. They answered Kansas's runs. Kansas State answered Iowa State's runs. So Iowa State has to be able to understand, be a senior-laden team, and understand that there are going to be runs. Kansas State is going to hit some threes. I mean, you have Will Spradling at Hilton. He was 4 or 5 from 3. He kind of got back on track, and he's the guy that's going to be dangerous. I think they just have to be able to handle the runs on the road.
I think one thing that's big in that also is, can they close it out? I mean, they've been on the road at Kansas, couldn't close it out. They've been on the road at Oklahoma State, couldn't close it out. Those were both of those teams are ranked right now in the AP rankings. If they close those out, I mean, there's just key little moments at the end of the game. If they can get those, they have 2 road victories.
Hoiberg brought up a good point yesterday after that Oklahoma win, that Iowa State finally played a complete game. I think that's really what they need to replicate. And let's actually get to that. Hoiberg really brought up some good points, and the players brought up some good points about what it took to beat a good Oklahoma team. Let's hear that. Coach Hoiberg after the win yesterday against Oklahoma.
I'm really proud of these guys for the way they approached it. You have a one-day prep on a team that runs a lot of different actions, and you really have to have great awareness to Pledger, to Osby, to Mbai, Fitzgerald. I mean, all those guys come off of a lot of great actions, a lot of misdirection type plays, and you really got to be on your toes. And for us to put in the game plan in 1.5 days, and for the guys to go out and execute it the way that we did, I thought was outstanding.
I think we just played very well, and I think we executed our game plan, I think, offensively and defensively. Defensively, we did a good job stunting and rotating and, getting rebounds for the most part. We did a good job rebounding. Offensively, I think we moved it pretty well. We got out in transition. We got some easy shots. I don't think we really took any bad shots tonight. We did a good job on the offensive glass, and it was just pretty easy for us once we got it going.
Well, we have shooters on this team, and good shooters are going to keep shooting. If they have a bad shooting game or not, your shot's not going to fall every game. So it's just ups and downs.
I think 10 of their first 17 were second-chance points, and we were guarding the initial actions very well, and our stunts and rotations, like Chris Babb said, were off the charts tonight. And there was one where Tyrus was a half-second late and Fitzgerald hit a shot, but other than that, I think in the first half we couldn't have played any better as far as our game plan is concerned.
That's the way we can play. When we keep that ball moving and we get stops and we get rebounds, we get out in transition, we just get easy shots. And I think we did a great job today, making the extra pass and making sure everybody was getting shots.
I think we put everything together tonight, and it's certainly something we can build off of. I thought we played very well, against Baylor for the most part, with the exception of not shooting the ball well. I thought we did a good job guarding them and slowing down Pierre Jackson, even though we made some terrific plays, and slowing down Isaiah Austin with Will Clyburn at 6'7". But yeah, when you put it all together and you shoot the ball like we did tonight, we're a pretty tough team to beat.
It was a good feeling. Everybody's playing together out there. Everybody was knocking down shots. When things are going well, usually everyone's happy. So it's just a good feeling.
There's Coach Hoiberg and some of the players talking about what it took to beat a good Oklahoma team at home. Obviously, we've been talking about Iowa State going on the road against Kansas State Saturday at 5 p.m. Guys, this is a big chance for them, as we were talking about, to build that resume up. I mean, this is a chance. They're running out of chances, as we mentioned. This is a great chance to get. Alex and I were saying, are they going to get to that 10-win mark that Hoiberg talks about? Are they going to be on the plus side, get those conference wins on the road? This is a big chance to build your resume.
Yeah, I mean, this is the important. You have this game, you have Kansas at home, and then you go on the road to Oklahoma, you go on the road to Baylor. I mean, that's about it, though.
Yeah, maybe Oklahoma State at home, but you're expected to win at home. So.
And Oklahoma State at home, but I mean, it's those road ones. Those are the ones that are going to get you that at-large bid, so you're not just sitting on the bubble when it comes tournament time.
6-3 in the conference right now, Alex. Look at the 7-3 if they win on Saturday. That's just another step to that 10-win plateau Hoiberg always talks about.
Yeah, and then I think you can look at the schedule and maybe count the wins. You can say that at home they should beat Texas Tech and they should beat TCU. That gets you to 8. Well, if you want to get to that 10, you got to find another 2. I mean, and you got a lot of road games with Kansas State, Baylor, Oklahoma, all teams you're fighting with in the top half of the conference. So you got to find those wins somewhere. I think 2 of them you can maybe count, but you got to find the road ones too.
Yeah, with the parity in the Big 12, I mean, you think about at the end of the year, they also have to travel to Morgantown.
Yeah.
I mean, they have to do that too. And I mean, Bob Huggins' squad, that's a tough squad. I mean, that was a tough game down here at Hilton. And I mean,
very physical
team. There's just nothing going to be easy in the Big 12.
Quick thoughts. What does it take to beat this Kansas State team, 13th in the country, and what do you think is going to happen on Saturday?
Personally, I think that if they shoot over 50% from behind the arc, I believe that they win this game. I believe they won't, and I think that they're going to lose by fewer than 5 points.
Yeah, it should be a good one. Cody?
Like Dean mentioned earlier, when K-State came to Hilton, they kind of matched blow for blow with Iowa State, and I think that's kind of what Iowa State's going to have to do in Manhattan if they want to stay in it and maybe pull one out late. I'm going to go ahead and predict the win. It's going to be close, probably come down to maybe the last 2 possessions.
Yeah,
I think the one thing that I'm interested to see is, the long layoff could help them. They have time for the game plan, but I think the long layoff could also hurt them. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how they come out. You mentioned it earlier. When they start out slow, that's what kind of hurts them at the end of the game. So I think that to win, they have to come out strong right from the start, and they've got to make the 3-pointers.
Yeah.
But I think I'm going to pick a loss.
Okay.
Like Dean said, I think it'll be around between 5 and 10. But I think once they get a win on the road, they close one out, then maybe we can start thinking differently about the road games.
Yeah, I look back to last year's game at Kansas State. Iowa State pulled that one out, got a sweep against Kansas State, really a game that they weren't predicted to win. They had that win against Kansas State at home. Royce White finishes it off at the buzzer. Similar to this season, obviously it wasn't a buzzer beater, but a close game at home. I expect, like you said, a close game within 5 points. I think Iowa State's going to pull this one out, though. I think that they're really playing their best basketball they played all season long right now.
Yeah.
Really going to be tough to beat them. And I think they're going to need that high-scoring performance. Last year with Scott Christopherson. Went down there, made a bunch of 3-pointers. I mean, that's when Iowa State's got so many guys that shoot 3-pointers, it makes it tough to defend that.
I think the biggest thing that gives them the chance to win is that if the game's tied, say with 2 minutes left, they've kind of found that closer now. I mean, Will Clyburn, he's won 2 Rookie of the Week awards in a row. It's his 3rd of the year. I mean, certainly he's not a rookie by being, 22, 3 years old, but I think they found that closer. Like you said, the way that he played against Oklahoma, the way he played against Baylor, I think he really took on that role of the team scorer, the team leader. And I think that's kind of what separates teams from winning on the road, is really finding that player that you can go to in crunch time. Much like last year when Iowa State, you go to Royce when you need a bucket at the end. Hoiberg said that time and time again. And I think Clyburn's really kind of finding himself in that role now.
Iowa State versus number 13, Kansas State, Saturday in Manhattan, Kansas. It's a 5 o'clock tip-off on ESPN2. Dylan Montz and Stephen Coningsville are going to join us in the next segment to talk about a little bit of Iowa State women's basketball. You're watching Cyclone InCYders.
Tune in to the weekend pregame, Fridays from 2 to 4 on 88.5 KURE. Dan Tracy, Dean Berhow-Gall, Spencer Hughes, and the KURE sports team bring you the latest in the world of sports. It's the weekend pregame on 88.5 KURE and online at KURE885.org.
And welcome back to Cyclone InCYders. We are live on ISU TV, Mediacom Channel 18. Normally every Mondays from 8 to 9, guys, but due to the Iowa State men's basketball game yesterday, we're going to be live here today till about 10 o'clock. Join with us now at the desk, Dylan Montz and Stephen Coningsville from the Iowa State Daily. They cover the Iowa State women's basketball team. And, guys, Iowa State with a very tough loss on the road to Kansas, an overtime loss. Second straight year they went down to Lawrence and were defeated in overtime to the Kansas Jayhawks. Guys, but they come back with a really commanding win against Texas Tech, 67-52 on Saturday. What was it about? What did you sense that was different about that Kansas game? Obviously, Iowa State, as you said, they were leading by 18, Stephen, and then they come back, lose that game, but they get a big win against Texas Tech. A little bit of confidence.
Right, Matt. They were down. They didn't get down until towards the end there.
Yeah.
Last 8 minutes, Coach Finley said. And he said just the last 8 minutes of that game just really ran away from them. They were up by 18, knocking down shots, and then the defense is what really fell behind. That's about it.
I was about ready to turn the game off. I thought it was about over. 10 minutes left. They're up 18 points. Dylan, what was it about Iowa State against Texas Tech, though, that they were able to play differently? Obviously, shots were falling for them in that game.
Well, in the second half, when Poppins and Prinz both had foul trouble there in the first half, but then when they came back in the second half, they really started to go inside and look more to them, and they really just started to pull it away there.
Yeah, they were down at halftime. Were they down by 1 point, I believe it was?
They were down by 4.
Okay, down four at halftime, 29-25. They score 42 points in the second half, just going a barrage of scoring. Obviously, Anna Prinz, and you said Chelsea Poppins really stayed out of foul trouble throughout the later. Only played about 10 minutes there in that first half there, and really were able to find their feeding and really get some good baskets for Iowa State.
Yeah, it was even 10 minutes between the two of them.
They
really had 2 quick fouls for each of them, really kept them out of there in the first half. And Hallie Christofferson kind of stepped up there and led the way in the first half. I think she had 11 points there to lead the way in the beginning.
And she was really able to keep Iowa State in that game, Stephen. She was really the kind of girl that was just kind of kept them around. And Iowa State gets in foul trouble, loses their two of their top scorers, 2 of their big post players, and she was really able to keep Iowa State in the game through shooting.
Yeah, that was huge. Like Dylan said, Poppins and Prinz going out early. They only played a combined total of 10 minutes in the first half. So with Christofferson becoming kind of that rising star for the Cyclones lately, she really kept them in that game. And then when they came back, the first 2 possessions the Cyclones faced, Prinz knocked down a quick 2 right under the basket, and then Poppins got a defensive rebound.
Christofferson, ever since Poppins had her concussion there early in the season against Loyola Marymount, I believe, down in the Bahamas, she really has kind of been the face of the Cyclones almost, even kind of leading the way and scoring. And every time you see it, it's kind of like Hallie Christofferson. So.
I covered the team last year, and Christofferson, she shot from outside, but she was nothing more than a role player. She didn't handle the ball too often. She was in the post every so often. What does she do now to score the ball so well, Stephen?
I think it's just being more confident. She said the game is coming to her so much more easily. Her shots are falling. She's knocking down the right shots. Her players are getting the ball to her more a little bit. So it was mainly just, it's coming a lot more easily. She's not having to force a lot of shots and a lot of plays.
Obviously, wins at home were big. That was a nice win, though. 16-6, what Texas Tech was 6-4. Iowa State's fighting for that spot, right? I mean, Coach Fenley said after the game, or it was Monday, that they've really got to win these home games and take advantage of the games that they have a chance to win. If they want a chance, I mean, you could finish 3rd place right now in the Big 12, or you could finish 9th place. I mean, it's that much of a difference.
Yeah, same with the men. It's always important to win at home. And I think Iowa State only has 2 wins on the road right now in Big 12 play. So obviously important to take care of business at home. But then now they need to start finding a way to go win on the road a little bit more.
Yeah, Cyclones
2 and
3 on the road, 4-1 at home, 6-4 in the conference, 15-5 overall. So really overall, pretty good season for Iowa State so far. But it's definitely not over. This is the big time of the year where they've got some big games coming up, guys.
Yep, they have Texas on Wednesday, so it'll be important. They beat Texas to start Big 12 play on January 2nd, I believe, in overtime. So going down there, Texas has a little bit of a different identity there this time around, but it'll be just as important.
Guys, one thing I wanted to bring up quickly is the play of the bench for Iowa State. Obviously, Bill Fenley, said earlier this week that he's going to stick by it. He's going to go 7 deep, just 2 players off the bench. Has no plans to change that. Kid Blaskowski and Fallon Ellis really put in some good minutes against Tech. Kid just coming in there as a freshman, got 10 points. She's averaging close there to about 8 points a game. So she's really been able to step in there when Iowa State needs a basket. She seems to be like that Tyrus McGee. She's like that Tyrus McGee where she just steps in there and gets a basket when you need it.
Yeah, she is, and she loves it. She loves everything about Iowa State. She's talked about it all season long, how she feeds off the crowd of Hilton and everything, and that's really what gets her going along with her teammates. And she is that spark that these Cyclones really need coming off that bench, since Finley said that they're not going to go more than 7 deep, and they don't plan to.
Yeah, and when Poppins went out with foul trouble, I thought Fallon Ellis played great defense. She went in there, grabbed some big rebounds for Iowa State, played some really solid defense, and got some big rebounds for Iowa State when they needed.
Yeah, they needed to have a physical type player down there with those 2 players out, and she really, not as well as in the second half with Poppins and Prince back in, but she kind of, I don't know, had her way with it a little bit and getting it in there from Moody with the attack.
Right. Iowa State's got a big game coming up on the road, as we said, at Texas. Let's go back a little bit to the game they played in Ames. That game went to overtime, guys. That was a big win for Iowa State. They really needed that win. I think they were coming off that Oklahoma State really poor performance down there in Stillwater. They really shot lights out that game, though. The shots kept falling for them. They kept them in that game. I think at halftime they really weren't. I think they were down at halftime, and they were able to kind of pull that game back within reach. So what's it going to take to beat Texas? This is a big chance for them to beat Texas, sweep them for the first time in program history.
Yeah, never swept Texas. Going down there on Wednesday night to take them on. It's going to take a little bit of what it took in the Texas Tech game. Poppins and Prinz and Christopherson, really those 3 main players. Talked a little bit about how the bench has been a big factor, just those 2, Ellis and Blakowski. But shots are really going to have to fall for the Cyclones to come out on top.
And Texas is going to be without one of their top players, too.
That's right. Koki Reed, she's no longer with the team due to medical issues, is what it was reported earlier this season. So she played a pretty big effect, as Dylan was talking about a little earlier. 15 points in that overtime win. So she's definitely not having her is gonna be big.
Yeah. I think Texas obviously is gonna hurt without her. Iowa State will have to exploit that down low matchup with Poppins and Prinz in there and see if they can kind of feed those 2 the ball a little bit.
I really thought Tech had no answer for Poppins and Prinz at all. They really just seemed to take advantage. Shots were falling for Iowa State. Prinz and Poppins just kept going at it. Really, that's what it's going to take to win, I think. And obviously, Texas only 9-11, 2-7 in the conference, got a chance to get a big road win.
Guys, this is what I'm curious about. See, last year I covered the team, and Prinz was injured a lot, like she has in the last 3 years. Now that she and Poppins are on the floor together, is this kind of the culmination of what Fenley may have been expecting when he was recruiting both these girls, have them both on the court at the same time underneath the basket?
I think so. Poppins wasn't as highly recruited as Prinz. Prinz was one of those more high-touted recruits, but I think for sure that them together right now down low is really what Fenley wanted all along, like you said.
Yeah, Dylan said it perfectly. Having both of them on the floor didn't really work out so much last year with Prinz being hurt so much. Poppins kind of carried the team as much as she could. Same with Christopherson not being as big of a threat as she is this year, like Dean said. But having them both down low, being able to score a lot of points, high rebounds when someone doesn't make a shot, Poppins comes back, gets that off his rebounds.
I find it funny. Prinz at 6'7", 6'8", is only averaging 5.7 rebounds, and Poppins, 6'3", we'll call her. She's averaging almost a double-double. 9 rebounds, 12 points per game.
She's really something.
She's a special player. Obviously, All-American candidate for her. She's a heck of a player. She's a really special player, and I think you're right. This is kind of what Fenley envisioned. I think that things are finally starting to click for him, and I think it really all starts with Nikki Moody too. Third in the nation, first in the Big 12 in assists. I think she's averaging about 7 a game. And she's really been distributing the ball, and I think that's really setting up Iowa State for some easy buckets.
I think she's got about 140 assists this year, and it's just it's unbelievable. When I first saw her play at Drake, it was the first game that I went and watched Iowa State play as a women. I immediately thought this is the most talented player on this roster, regardless of Chelsea Poppins. Maybe not the best player, but certainly the most talented as a freshman. The way she distributed the ball, her physical ability and her quickness. It was really something to watch. I mean, it really made the basketball games a lot of fun to watch. And I think that now she has a year under her belt. She cut down her turnovers a lot. All that Fenley in her ear really starting to pay off, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I look at a game, I think the Iowa game really stands out to me. That's a game where they had a big chance to win. I mean, they were down early in that game, and I counted them out at halftime. I thought they were just done for. I think, what did they score, like 18 points in the first half, something like that? They only go on to lose 50-42, but after that, they rack up, I think, 6 consecutive wins. And from that span, I think that was that dates back to that Texas game, which they started conference play at. And that, to me, is really when they started playing their best basketball, right after that Iowa game. I think that they started to kind of understand, okay, this is what it's going to take to win. We really got to show up and play. I mean, big road test at Iowa, they really got a taste of a tough crowd to play in. And I think that they really got the message, and I think it came across, and it's paying off for them.
Yeah, and I think they started to, like with the men, find their roles a little bit more. Nikki started worrying about she stopped worrying about scoring as much and started worrying about maybe getting the ball to other people and just kind of finding what's ever working, whether it's the down low game or whether it's the outside shooting.
Yeah. She's so smart with the ball. When she brings it up the floor, she either knows when to take the shot. I mean, Fenley talked to her about it in practice, how if she can take that shot, take it. Yep. Don't always give the ball away. But she's really smart with the ball, becomes smarter with the ball after that Iowa game. And you talked about them playing their best basketball. Yep. They lost Poppins for a couple games there in that Iowa game. And then once she was back, they had their whole team back together. And then it kind of just started clicking from there on out.
I think you're right about Moody, that she has been taking smarter shots, and that she had 8 against Tech. Earlier on in the season, she probably has 3 or so, 4 maybe in that game. And I think that you're right, she's making smarter decisions. And when Iowa State only goes 2 deep on the bench, they're going to need those starters to shoot. And if the shot's there, I think that they really need to start taking advantage of them. I think, we see Anna Prinz go out there and shoot threes. If it's there, we know she can make threes. They got to take advantage of the shots that they can make. And against a team like Texas, against the teams like Baylor, they got to take advantage of those open shots, and hopefully they fall.
Yep. They're really gonna have to worry about shooting the ball from outside. I mean, Texas, they might be looking to put more defense on Poppins and Prince down low, so that could maybe open Williamson for the 3, or Christopherson, like we mentioned, is a good outside shooter.
And you talk about Moody being so much more smarter. Earlier in the season, she has almost double-digit turnovers.
Yeah, that's a good point.
When she's trying to give that ball away, she's not thinking as clearly, getting a little too excited when she's coming up the court. That Texas Tech game, she has 2 turnovers and 6 assists. That just speaks a lot about the smarter player she's become.
Yeah, I think the turnovers is a good point. I mean, they did rack up 14 against Tech, which is a pretty high number. But still, they were able to get a 15-point win. Only hit 4 3-pointers in that game. And I think it's similar to the men. We can keep comparing these 2 teams, but they are very similar in a sense that, both teams really live and die by the 3. I mean, you look at, Kid Blaskowski was 2 for 3. Nikki Moody was 1 for 4. Hallie Christopherson 1 for 2. So, Bryn Williamson, too, was 0 for 4. And we can talk about that just a little bit. She's been struggling a little bit, and I think they're going to need that production from her if they're going to want to have some success down the stretch.
That's how that team is built. It seems to me, you have Christopherson, you have Poppins, and you have Prinz underneath. And you have them, and I mean, certainly you have Christopherson and Prinz that can shoot from outside, but they rely on those 3 primarily to rebound. Certainly they rebound as a team, but those 3 really have a presence underneath, and they're able to kick out to all players that can shoot from behind the arc, maybe except for Poppins.
Think about this, though. When I look back at that Tech game, 25 points in the first half, 42 in the second. If they're able to duplicate that and play a complete game, think how dangerous this team can be. They competed with Baylor at home. What did they lose by 15 points? They've got a chance. I mean, anything can happen in the Big 12 tournament, obviously. But I think that if Iowa State can play like that, hit shots like that, make the open 3, they've got a chance to make a bit of a run.
Right. They won at West Virginia, which is a very tough place to play. Absolutely. West Virginia's at the top of the league. Beat Oklahoma at home. Beat Texas Tech at home. I think if they have shots falling, like you said, and keep working with that inside game, I think they have a pretty chance.
Like you said, just down 4 at halftime against Tech.
Down 4. They weren't even leading.
And they could have been down 2, but I think it was Ellis just gave up a quick last-second buzzer beater at the end.
Finley wasn't too happy.
No, he was not. He was not happy at all. But
no look.
But I mean, scoring 42 and then holding Texas Tech to just 23 in the second half. If you play that full complete game, you keep Prinz and Poppins out of foul trouble. Keep the whole team, the starting 5, maybe 6, bring in Blakowski if you have to. Definitely a good chance to win it down at Tech.
So they go down to Austin. Big game against Texas tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. Dylan, what's it going to take for Iowa State to pull this game off? Potentially could get a sweep against the Longhorns.
Right. I think what they're going to have to do is keep Chastity Fussell in check. She's second in the league in scoring with 12.4 points per game. So I think if maybe they put Williamson on her, she's been kind of the defensive specialist, I'd say. I think they'll have a pretty good chance.
Yeah, she's a talented shooter. She can really take over a game, too. I mean, I think that 2-7 record is a little bit misleading. I mean, they 9-11 overall, so they've really been struggling a little bit this year. But she's a player that can really change a game.
Absolutely, and Dylan touched on having Bryn Williamson take her on.
Yep.
Williamson is a special kind of player for this team. She can shoot the three a lot of the time well. Disregarding the Tech game, didn't hit a three, 0-4 there. But she can shoot the three well. She can defend better than almost anybody on the team. So keeping Fuzzle in check, that'll be huge.
Do you know they're gonna have to play a similar game to what they did against Tech in order to get this win tomorrow?
Yeah, I believe they will. Yeah. I think that they're going to have to go down to Texas. They're going to have to figure out how to really play on the road because, I mean, like you said, they've been struggling, same as the men. And I think if they can, like you said, rely on Poppins and Prinz underneath, be able to shoot from the outside, that's kind of the identity of this team. I think that they can get a win.
Yeah, Iowa State sits at 6-4 in the conference right now, Dylan. 15-5 overall. Do they have a chance? I mean, do they have a chance to get that 10 wins in the Big 12? Do you think is it within the realm?
I think so. I think if they win at Texas, they have Kansas State at home still. They have West Virginia at home, and they have Kansas at home. All three, I think, are winnable. They've either beaten or been close to all of them.
Where do you see them finishing in the Big 12? I mean, obviously there's a lot of games, a lot of time in between that, but I mean, they've got a legit shot to get second place in the Big 12 right now.
I think if they finish out at home well enough, I think they go at third. I think West Virginia gets ahead of them, and Baylor's obviously going to be champion.
Yeah, Dean?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that this Big 12 conference has a lot of parity. I mean, aside from Baylor, it's obviously just a buzzsaw at the top.
Baylor and everybody else.
It's Baylor and everybody else. They're a complete buzzsaw. But I believe that if Iowa State defends their home court like they have been this season, maybe finds a couple wins on the road, I think that they can finish probably in that 2 or 3 spot.
Dylan and Dean put it perfectly. Got to finish out perfect at home. Maybe win 1 or 2 of those road games if you can. But yeah, I mean, those guys put it perfectly.
Who you got?
I got Iowa State. Close game.
Okay.
But I think Texas, like you said, is struggling a little bit. They're on a 2-game win streak with Kansas State and TCU, but I think it's not going to be enough for them.
Yeah, 0-7 to start the conference, get 2 back-to-back wins. So what do you think, Dean?
Iowa State by more than 5.
More than 5, okay.
I got to take Iowa State about 8.
I think it's going to be another close game. Obviously, that first game at home, that first Big 12 conference game for Iowa State, they went to overtime with Texas. Iowa State didn't play their best game in the first half, but like we said, going back to that Tech game, really played a great second half. I think they do win. Probably going to be about a 10-point game, I think. Nikki Moody, I expect to have a great game. Returning home to her home state of Texas.
Got to.
It'll be a nice homecoming for her. So that game is at 7 o'clock. It's on the Longhorn Network, so we probably won't be able to watch that one.
You subscribe?
No, I do not.
I've got a little bit of a beef with the Longhorn Network, but we'll leave that for another show. I want to thank Alex Halstead and Cody Peterson for joining us in the first segment. Thanks to Dylan Montz and Stephen Koningsfeld, obviously Dean Burhau-Gall. We'll see you next Monday at 8 p.m. for another episode of Cyclone InCYders. Thanks for watching, everybody.